How to speed transitions with ultimate dungeon terrain today on DungeonCraft. Welcome to DungeonCraft. I'm Professor DungeonMaster, and this channel is about playing the ultimate game of D&D. Level up your game by subscribing and clicking the bell icon for notifications. So viewers have asked how I transition using my ultimate dungeon terrain. I conceived of UDT as a sort of bridge between theater of the mind and traditional dungeon terrain. Instead of building out an entire dungeon in advance, I build one room at a time, place it in the center of the table on a turntable, and the terrain comes to you. When the players are engaged in social encounters or exploring a forest or a cave or moving through hallways, I run theater of the mind. I only use the UDT when it's a combat encounter. With UDT, you get the benefit of seeing which way the miniatures are facing and who has cover, without the inconvenience of having to set everything up and put everything away, and it's easy to store like you see behind me. Plus, you can avoid the expense of having to buy an expensive gaming table with a sunken surface or having to build it yourself. So the best way to speed up transitions is not to use too much terrain in the first place. Use terrain judiciously. I often place the miniatures first in the center of the UDT, and then I place the rest of the terrain around them. I limit it to only critical details, like exits in case they have to retreat, and anything behind which someone can take cover. Things like chests, dressers, rugs, torch brackets, these things are cool, but not necessary. Even chairs can clutter up the room. Your miniatures can actually sit in the chair, so you don't have to worry about crafting them. If you love to craft, that's great. What I'm suggesting is that you only craft what you really need. Now, let's go to the table and I'll show you some other tricks. So here we are in the game room. My wife calls it the dining room, but we only eat here twice a year, so I call it the game room. And this is the first encounter in our evening session. And it's going to occur here in this kind of slummy, burned out section of the city. And the characters are going to meet some gang members, and they're going to have to rescue a prisoner, and they find this mysterious box. And you can see it's a really cool setting, a lot of stuff for the players to interact with. We got a bridge and some stairs and a lot of stuff to hide behind. So then we're going to move to, after that scene's done, we're going to move to the tavern. And I call this my Les Miserables technique. Like if you've ever seen Les Miserables or a big budget Broadway show, they got the turntable, you know, the stage is on a turntable. Now, if you're going to have a tavern encounter and it's just going to be purely social, like the player character is just going to collect rumors and talk to the tavern keeper and try to hire a henchman, that you don't need to build out with terrain. You only need terrain if you're going to have a combat encounter, and in this case, several of these tavern patrons are were-rats. So this is my secret organizing weapon. It is a junk drawer organizer. I got this from Bed Bath & Beyond with a 40% off coupon. You can get them all the time, or you can get them at TJ Maxx or Marshall's, like a discount store. I really like this kind because it's got a rubber bottom so things don't slide around. And all my figures and furniture for that encounter is in the appropriate drawer. So this is the first encounter with the bandits, that's going to be the inn, and that's going to be the finale, which is going to occur in a wizard's laboratory. So if I feel that the counter is too easy, I could just reach in there and put a bandit there, put a bandit over here, and we've got more bandits. Now on the other side, we have our were-rats ready to go. We can also modify the terrain like this. When the bandits aren't used anymore, we put them into their compartment, and we go like this, and now this is a bedroom at the top of the stairs. The key word here is with the terrain is versatility. You want terrain that can be used in a number of different ways. Now cleanup is a snap because it's all compartmentalized, right? So all these tavern figures, they go into the same area. And so does the furniture. I know people watching my other videos, they didn't like the way I just shoved my figures aside, but most of these are plastic and so is the furniture. It's really cheap, and we can just quickly do that. That minimizes transition time. But there's a couple other ways we could do transitions. We can simply do this. We could do the swap out. I move one piece of terrain and swap it out for another one. Here's a road encounter. I can reuse those bandits like this. And we have an ambush for the player characters. So you can speed transitions by building a final boss layer in advance and displaying it on this second smaller piece of terrain. Just drop it on the table and you're good to go. The other way you can smooth transition is handouts. Let's say one of the were-rats has this note. Give it to the players, and while they are reading that note, you can clean up. Another method is the corkboard method. I have this corkboard in the center of town, and it's got a bunch of rumors and employment opportunities for the characters and just bits of news. and I can use that to steer the player characters in the right direction. So while the player characters are reading all this out loud to each other, I can change the scenery. Over the summer, I'm going to be running an adventure called Macbeth at Gen Con and hopefully a few other places to be announced. With this scenario, these are all the models and the miniatures I'm going to need. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, there are up to 3 or 4 battle encounters, and the rest are social encounters, which we don't need terrain for. So this is how fast I could set up my terrain, right? We're going to hit the clock, and it's going to go like this, pulling it from here. We have a leader there, we've got the witch there, we've got these here. The bigger swordsmen are on top, on the stairs. And there we go, 22, 23 seconds, and we're done. Okay, how fast can we set up the new scene? We're gonna be throwing it down into the empty bin there, and I'm gonna set my timer, and go. And we're done in 43 seconds. And if you still need more time, you can always do what the theater does, call a brief 5 or 10 minute intermission. At that point, people can stop, check their cell phones, go to the bathroom, and return for the grand finale. That's how Broadway plays and big budget Shakespeare plays do it. And while we're in the game room, help me solve a little disagreement. In this case is a bunch of alleged valuables, including china plates I never use, Frosty and Mrs. Frosty matching salt and pepper shakers, crystal water glasses that are incredibly fragile, top-heavy, and completely impractical. Wine glasses when no one in our household drinks wine. Meanwhile, my handcrafted dungeon terrain and miniatures are restricted to the top level of the break front and put away in a window seat after every session, even though we use them all the time. My thought is, given the frequency with which we use them, we should display my terrain pieces and miniatures in the break front and take out the china only on Thanksgiving and Christmas when we actually use them. Doesn't that make logical sense? What do you think? Voice your opinion below. I'll total the votes and present the results to Mrs. Professor Dungeon Master, and I'll let you know how things turned out. If you want to know more about UDT and how I make and use it, check out these videos over here. Click the Dungeon Door logo to subscribe, and please share this video. This has been Professor Dungeon Master for DungeonCraft. Thanks for watching. I'll see you at the table, and may all your rolls be 20s.